Hey guys, welcome to the RAW Barbell Club Podcast, something that I haven't done in a while, but I like to find the excuse to get people together to chat about all things strength, all things training, all things coaching, and all things gym businesses. So I'm here with Jacob and Troy. Troy's the head coach of Hunter Barbell. Jacob is, would you say head coach or co-coach?
Co-coach, head coach. It depends on what we're looking at here, like or what program we do, and kind of the head of Strongman, like that's for sure. But yeah, it's kind of a loose term, I guess, between myself and the other coaches. We don't try to like take over as one's the boss.
Yeah, see, I have so much ego that everyone needs to know that I'm the boss at all times. So I'll be like,
nice.
Yeah, Steve, head of CrossFit. Ash, head of programming. Andy, head of everyone.
The boss.
The boss, yeah.
The big boss.
So we're sitting here at New Strength, which is a strongman weightlifting strength and conditioning gym. Like, sum that up all right?
Yeah, that's it. That's probably as good as it gets.
Yeah, and I met you probably last year at Adonis?
December, I think it was, Battle of the Gods 2? Yeah.
And so that was when you had already qualified, hadn't you?
Yeah. So I was already qualified through the New South Wales Strongest Man, and I'd won that that was June, I think it was, and then I just like to turn up at all the comps because it's fun.
Yeah.
Ruin the fun for other people if I win. Yeah, it's good.
Well, top two had already qualified, right?
Yeah.
So it was
you
you
really
and
ruined it for Jack.
Yeah, Jack was so
a
sad.
jerk.
If one of you guys had just like done slightly worse, I think Jack would have qualified.
Yeah.
So screw you guys. But that's all right. Hopefully that makes him hungrier to come back and actually make it.
It really saved him the letdown of not having it cancelled 3 days before the comp too. So really, we looked after him.
That's true. That is the worst. We were talking about that yesterday at lunch because we also did one of these yesterday but didn't record it. But just like how hard it is to plan around all of these comps that aren't happening or say that they're going to happen and then they don't actually end up doing anything.
Or they just throw a random new one into the mix.
Like the one next week.
That one wasn't too bad. It was sort of more like planning, like from the weightlifting side of things, planning. Yeah, we're going to peak at state champs, which is now on the new date for nationals, and then out of the blue, they're like, nationals is now going to go ahead as an online comp. It's like, yeah, we're probably not going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Like it's too late. Stop trying to add new things. It's too late. Just let us plan for something.
It seems like the AWF moves at like a snail's pace. Because like we got shut down and then Josh and stuff from the weightlifting platform were like so quick on the ball. They were like, hey, we're going to run an online weightlifting comp. It's going to be very cheap, very low barrier to entry. This is how you do it. And then almost at the end of quarantine, the AWF was like, we're going to run ISO lifts. And, I don't even know what the participation level was for it.
I couldn't tell you either.
I would say it's pretty low. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, Jacob?
Yeah, so I'm a gym owner, father recently, which is cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. That's probably the most exciting thing at the moment. And then, I guess the last couple of years I've just been playing around with this strongman thing. I'd been a little bit of a dabbler in terms of strength sports for a long time, and I'd just be like, oh cool, I'm going to go do a Spartan race. I'm going to go do a novice powerlifting comp, a half marathon a week later, which was a dumb move. But yeah, like a lot of those different things. And then at some point somebody's like, hey, come do this strongman comp. And I went in there. I happened to do pretty decently well for like the three guys that were placed ahead of me in the under 90s had just kind of come off the back end of they'd just been at the Arnold's. And then one of the guys like tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, man, you got to keep doing this. And I was like, okay, he was a scary looking dude. And I was like,
who was it?
Jared McIntyre. He's the most lovely human ever, but he's just a very intense competitor.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like he's just, the whole day basically did not talk to me at all. and then once the day was done, then like came over and had a chat to me and was like the nicest dude ever. And he's like, oh, you got to do like New South Wales state titles in a couple of weeks time. You have to be there. And then like checked in with me like 3 days later. He's like, oh, you signed up, have you? Like, are you good to go? I was like, yeah, okay, man, I'll sign up. Like went through with it, and then just kind of caught the bug and fell in love with it. And I think like from that point, I've had a fair amount of success in a reasonably short time. And then that kind of grew into like the people at the gym that we had were like, hey, is there that for girls? Is like, can I do a strongman comp? And then like as a gym collectively, we've had a lot of success. So we were meant to have 3 of us at Arnold's. We just had like obviously we know that didn't go ahead. We just had a team of 5 at the New South Wales titles last weekend, and we had one of our guys, it was Sam, like basically was all but would have won had he actually followed the rules, and in terms of timing of taking his hands off the bar for the stones.
Yeah.
He would have got 1 place ahead, and that would have won him the whole comp. So that's been really, really cool. But yeah, I guess it's just been a whirlwind of just being around PT and strength, and just ended up finding the little space that was like, this is fun and I'm going to stick with this for a while and we'll just see where it goes.
I didn't realize that. So New Strength was around, but I didn't realize that you guys did no strongman until you just kind of like started to. It's really recent then that you got into strongman.
Yeah, so we what was it? We probably would have been open probably 9 months before I did my first strongman comp, and then it kind of like just flowed on from there. So I had a few toys because I always liked it, but it was like I had like a little baby log, and that was like I used it in like conditioning, like workouts, whatever.
Like
so
a little 8-inch log.
Oh, it was like a 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like Aussie strength. I think.
Oh,
it was like
the little ones, like this.
It was still wide. Like,
okay.
It was like 40 kilos, or like 45 maybe or something like that. But it was like still like decent length. It was just very, very thin. And so I was probably about 9 months in, but I had stuff like the farmer's handles because I used to do like, I guess like the Poliquin-esque like modified strongman training for conditioning stuff. So I was like never with stones or anything like that, but I just liked getting into the dead balls and the loaded heavy conditioning stuff, and that was about as close as we got to it. And then this comp came up, and I was like, oh, I have all this stuff here, so I guess I could probably actually train it for strength and for the comp and see how it goes. And yeah, then it just escalated, and I spent a lot of my money and time into accumulating strongman stuff, buying stones and traveling all over the place to try to get those stones from random people, which is always fun.
Well, there's a dude that makes a bunch of stones up here, right?
Central Coast. Yeah, so I recently went and got one off him.
What's the guy's name?
Phil Burgess.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
He used to run New South Wales Strongest Man a while ago, and then kind of I think he passed it on to Mick and the guys at PTC to run it, and then more recently he started like the Southern Hemisphere Strongest Man and trying to get like I guess a bit of a pro circuit outside of like for the guys south of the equator, because there's a lot of stuff in Europe, there's a lot of stuff in US for those guys to make a bit of money, but there's like very little besides Arnold's as like an opportunity for a lot of those guys to do well. Arnold's in Australia's Strongest Man, so I think he's tried to kick that off. He had a decent first comp, had a couple of guys from like I think South Africa and New Zealand come over for it, and then this year COVID just kicked everyone in the butt again.
Yeah.
And I think he had to like reschedule it, then cancel it, and then just wasn't meant to be this year for him.
Now, Troy, you've been on the podcast before, but can you give us a quick rundown in case they don't remember who you are, like just your background and what's sort of going on?
Yeah, so I coach Olympic weightlifting at RAW Barbell Club. I've been coaching for about 6 years now. Got into the sport through CrossFit probably back in early 2014. I was just sort of getting sick of what I wasn't really liking about the training at the time was that I knew what I wanted to improve on, but the group fitness side of CrossFit just wasn't really accommodating to that. So I really enjoyed the Olympic lifts and wanted to dive a bit more into those, and so I went off, started learning a bit on my own, and wasn't really liking the differences in the knowledge that was coming my way, so I sought out a weightlifting coach, which is how I ended up with Martin Harlow down in Sydney. And
both of you have done a bit of work with Marty, right?
So he taught me how to be a coach, and over the years, the club ended up opening in Newcastle, which I went in and looking for experience and became a part of that community, and Hunter Barbell has since sort of taken that community onwards once that club closed down, and the rest is history.
And if you guys want to learn more about Troy, there is a podcast. I think it's called, I have no idea what it's called.
I couldn't tell you either.
Yeah, that's right. But we did film one, and it was a good episode. I really liked that episode. What I'd like to talk to you guys about is some of the similarities that I find between Olympic weightlifting and strongman. Obviously, Troy, like, you've seen a lot of the strongman movements, but might not have necessarily either performed or coached someone in those before. And Jacob, like, you do both here, so you have...
Yeah, I do a novelty snatch or clean and jerk once a week.
Yeah.
I wait till the class is on, I finish my coaching, and I run over, and whoever's got the heaviest bar, I just lift it cold, and I'm like, how does this one look? Nate's normally just like shamefully like walks away and is like, just stop doing cold lifts, damn it. Like,
I know that I wonder, I always think to myself, like, what is the most that I can lift cold? So like, obviously it's quite easy, like on a bench press, like maybe, you know, a 90 kilo bench cold is not that big a deal. But like when it comes to like a dynamic movement, like a snatch or a clean and jerk, whew, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you're honing in skill as well as pulling a resistance.
Well, that's it.
So, you might be strong enough to pull it cold, but have you got the skill sort of tuned in, dialed in to finish it off as well?
yeah, but when you're like me and you don't have the skill in the first place, it's just about pulling it. But do you have the strength? So yeah, I think my best is, I think I've done like the power clean at 115 cold, and that really beat the shit out of me though. Like that was the tipping point where I was like, yeah, no, let's not do this anymore.
I've seen Yannick, Yannick Missed. Yannick actually trains with Lee as well.
Yeah, I saw him loaded a sort of 150 kilo stone that was insane.
Yeah.
It was either 140 or 150, but it was like...
Yeah, I had to buy him
to
that
his neck.
because I lost a bet to him. This is like one of the most expensive bets I've ever made. It's like $500.
What was the bet?
Whoever squat 200 first would have to buy... No, the person who didn't do it would have to buy the other person the stone.
Right.
Mm. So...
Yeah, that's an expensive bet.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it. Our new bet is whoever deadlifts 250 first.
What's the cost on this?
Do you know what Exogeny is?
I know the name. I know.
It's like, have you seen like what Martins and stuff use to simulate the truck pull?
Oh yeah.
The little coil thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those, and they're like $700.
I better get deadlifting then.
Yeah, I've got it. It's bad. Like I hit 235 on Friday, and then took the jump to 250 because that was my like program jump, and it just didn't break. And I was like, damn it! If only I could have done it today. I don't have to stress about it for the rest of the year. But yeah, no.
Deadlift bar? Like what's the rules that you're putting on this? Like, could you have put a deadlift suit on? To like...
No deadlift suit, but it can be just like powerlifting or strongman rules. Like it's, I don't know.
Sumo,
well, we did
conventional.
So yeah, technically I could sumo, but I also don't want to be a bitch. You know what I mean? Like
$700 on the
way harder though. Like, yeah, my sumo sucks.
See, my issue as well with deadlifting is that I struggle to break the bar. So like breaking the bar when you sumo is even harder than breaking it conventional. Like if I can get it like a tiny bit off the ground, then potentially it'll move. That's the hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, similarities between weightlifting, strongman. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Obviously, strongman, you have to be a ridiculous presser. I've talked to you in the past about pressing for weightlifting, and you're like, you know what, I don't really make my athletes strict press or maybe push press in like a GPP phase, but
Yeah, not often. Not often for a strict press. Much more strict press. Yeah, that's pretty much the summary there.
yeah.
Yeah. More
whereas
transfer to jerks.
the push press, yeah. Whereas strongman is like, I don't know, how many, like, what's your pressing volume for a week?
At the moment it's up a fair bit just because it's kind of an off-season phase, but yeah, like typically we'll go with like some form of push pressing in like different implements, like as it's closing in on comps, like twice a week for a fair amount of volume, like somewhere between 4 to 6 sets, plus some assistance lifts. Like depends on like where the athlete is as well. Like for me it's a weakness, so like I have to close that gap a little bit more, so I'll spend more time overhead, but like I'll typically go like push press will be a priority over like a strict press as well, just because you can push press. So if you're spending all your time, particularly if your weakest point is getting it off the shoulder, most of the time you're going to be pressing it from like there up once you're in that push press anyway. So I'll spend, most of the guys that we have that are working on it will do like a push press, like particularly way further out of competition, like push press on like a log 1 day a week and on like a barbell or even like an axle, depending on what the events are going to be coming up. And if we know that, like barbell's kind of your staple and log's kind of that one that it's like you kind of still need to keep working on it all the time because log's just shit,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Well, it has a high technical quality, so
Yeah.
you're always going to have to practice it.
Yeah, so typically like the barbell and the log are the two staples, and then like as you move through, if you've got like a monster dumbbell comes up, then you need to work those in and like kind of give and take. But at the moment everyone decides that 4 overhead implements is the best way to run a comp. Just
Yeah,
to keep
so
it exciting.
so that's not always how it is, like they're just,
Typically you have one overhead event, and most of the time it's one overhead implement. Like, so it might be like a max log, or it might be like for like axle for reps in a minute or something like that, or some form. Like every now and then you get some form of medley, but you would typically think it's like every sort of 3rd or 4th comp that you come up to. And lately I think like every comp that I've prepped for has been multiple overhead, like since Battle of the Gods in December,
which was 3.
Yeah, what was that? That was 3. So you
Log,
had
dumbbell,
log, dumbbell,
Viking.
Then we had Arnold's was 4. New South Wales was 4, and then the Coal City Strongest in December that I'll just do for a bit of fun is 4 again. So there's seems to be this trend towards that, but it all comes back from what World's Strongest Man does and what Arnold's do. It always feeds down. Like New South Wales this year was basically like a rejigged around Arnold's comp.
Yeah, and even the weights were like so similar, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the thing is like, and even like what happens at like the OSG World's Strongest Man competition, like a lot of those events end up feeding back through the comps because people watch it and it's like, that looks cool, we'll try that. Like I think last year's New South Wales, the first event was yoke 20 meters, sandbag 20 meters, loaded over the yoke, which was the first event of OSG Worlds the year before. And our weights were basically the same. Like, and we had, I think their event was 15 meters on theirs, and we had like a 6 kilo lighter yoke and had to go an extra 5. So, and then mentioned like they had a yoke with just a regular sort of crossbar height versus we had the Stand or Submit tower yokes that have
The double crossbar.
The double crossbar, which makes it more stable, but it also means that it's like now when you've got to load it over there, you've got to clear it like basically over your head.
Yeah.
Not much fun. But yeah, a lot of those events carried down like from whatever's happening at the top level. People see that, they like it, and it's like, let's chuck this in a comp. But yeah, so depending on if we go back to like the how to program it, it's very dependent on like what that is. If you've got one overhead event, you can kind of use like a base strength day where you're just going to work on push press, or like typically for me, like I'll do a little bit of jerk practice because you can use it in everything except Viking press. So being that I'm not a great overhead like strict strength guy.
Just sorry to interrupt you, but Strongman picks the weirdest rules to enforce.
Yeah.
It's like you can do anything except sumo and double dip on your Viking press.
Yeah. That
Everything else goes.
But is it you can't press the log off your head, which is a very good, like very safe rule. But yeah, no sumo, and then like some events are like you can't figure 8 strap, but then other events you can. It's like, where are they drawing the line on these things?
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's that, yeah. You can't do sumo, but you can have a 24-hour weigh-in for a comp that's like a novice competition.
Sorry, you were talking about the split jerk as well.
Yeah, so I'll play around with it. I teach a lot of my lighter lifters to do it. Like it's and we don't have as many on the heavier side that we work with. But I'll teach the lighter lifters to do it because it's like, well, particularly most of the weights that we're going to be working at, it's more efficient. Like we're not going to gas ourselves doing it, and particularly if you don't have like there's guys that have a huge strict press and like, well, they're going to use it, but if you don't have it, then you're not just going to sit back and not do the lift. Like if you can just learn to split jerk it.
Yes.
So I'll play around with a little bit of that and then scale back and work that foundation strength afterwards. And then on the second day is typically going to be the log or like whatever the competition implement's going to be that you're working on. And then like a little bit just accessory work, just general tricep, bench, like different variations like that that are going to help build the base for you to then be able to press more.
I wonder, like, so Troy, I'd like you to weigh in on this because when it comes to like the barbell clean and jerk for Olympic weightlifting, what we look for, or that's what I look for, I don't want to put words in your mouth, you can weigh in on your own, is when we look at the dip mechanics, because that sort of determines what happens as the bar leaves your shoulders or whether they leave your shoulders at all. And then like stacking mechanics overhead, and how we would train that is like, rather than like push presses would be good in a GPP phase, but as we get closer to competition, we're working on like specific skills, like jerk balances and just like heavy jerk dips or even light jerk dips, just focusing on the technique. And I wonder whether, because you never see strongmen play with those things very much. It's always just like strip press, push press, and maybe like a rack press, but oftentimes it's still at like low enough that you're actually pressing out. I wonder if those things would help a jerk as well.
Yeah, I do actually see Narimu use little like drills like that a little bit, or specifically the like the jerk recoveries and stuff. Like
with a log though, or
with the
bar?
log and with the axle.
Yeah.
So he last year I think broke the axle world record at like for under 90s. Like I think it was 167 kilos, which is insane considering that it's like you don't get the whip in the bar and the dip and drive, and you've got to basically rest that thing on your stomach for a second. But the dude's got unlimited power.
Yeah, like he can regular clean and jerk like 175, right?
Yeah. So
it's not far off. That's the guy we showed you yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Just has this like insane, like his power clean on the axle, or his clean on the axle is just so impressive. Just drives it up, quick switch grip, it stops for like a split second on his stomach, and then he just rips it again and just pops it up to his shoulders. Dude's insane. But I've seen him do stuff like the jerk recoveries and kind of uses it. I think his coach Max likes doing a lot of like part of that as part of like a post-activation potentiation as well. So he'll work some stuff like that, followed by then a normal like clean and jerk or stuff like that in between.
Yeah, okay.
So he's got a lot of funky like different methods that seem to be working very, very well for Na. And I think there's a lot of things that have that are starting to come into the sport. There's a few of the guys that are doing stuff like that, but it's, I guess, there's this big swing of like a lot of the people that are coming through Strongman are still coming through the I guess traditional channels, and then there is the people that are coming over from weightlifting, coming over from Strongman, from CrossFit and stuff like that into Strongman. I think you're seeing a few more of those little like technical drills to work on specific portions of movements to help as well.
Care to weigh in on like what you've seen of log presses and log jerks and stuff?
I have a feeling you think I've seen more than what I have as well. So I have not seen a lot.
Okay.
At all.
I will show you some later. But then talk about like, because I would say that the mistakes you see in Strongman are the mistakes you see in CrossFit.
All right, so it's so we say it's probably skill based as opposed to strength based, because a lot of CrossFitters have more strength in reserve than what we probably give them credit for.
Yes.
Which I think would most definitely probably be the case in Strongman. So I think it's more of a skill acquisition side of things. So I'd probably say, like, if I'm being asked, what's another way you could look at improving on it, and say, okay, well, are you training it as a skill versus just building the strength base to do it? Like if you're programming an exercise, say, we've got this style of log press in a comp, and you program it, let's get strong at it, or do you also come from an angle of this is the skill involved? Like, are you just saying there's just going to have to be crossover between the two, or
there's so a piece of that comes down to who the lifter is, what the comp weights are, because that's the thing with strongman that, like, compared to a lot of other strength sports, is you have set weights as opposed to, like, weightlifting, you choose your own attempts.
Right.
Like,
okay.
so if the comp calls for a 100 kilo log, you're doing a 100 kilo log regardless of whether your max is 80 or 120.
Yeah.
Like, so then you've got
your 280 deadlift.
Yeah, I was just gonna be looking at it. Like, I would have, like, walked up to the bar, like, and this is the thing with Arnold's. Arnold's makes these, like Mason and the guys at Stand Up Submit are insane. Like, the pieces that they come together to make a show of the event. Like, they'd made this axle, and I think it, like, basically the wheels stood at, like, 6 foot tall, and but it was going to be done at, like, so the center of the wheel was like 90 centimeters, so you had to be on a
plinth.
On a block that you would have to, like, basically walk up onto this platform to then lift this deadlift off the ground that was at a regular barbell height. I was like, the amount of guys that are going to be walking up to that bar to strap up, make an attempt, and then just, like, wave and walk off the platform was going to be ridiculous. That was going to be me. But yeah, so I guess it depends on the situation. Like, if you've got something like where you need to make up ground on the lift, then there's a technical component that we might do through warm-ups and a bit of skill acquisition, and then we still have to work the strength side of it too, to make up the ground on that. When you've got something like so for example, the Coal City comp at the end of this year, the weights are all well within reason for myself. So I was like, well, it's about doing it quickly, which is about efficiency, and it's about, like, okay, how can we refine the technique so that you can have speed through the movements, rather than being how can I add another 10 kilos to my log in this time frame. So it probably depends on the competition that's leading up to where the athlete sits in that space to get them there. Like, for me, coming into this next phase, I am doing a lot more position work, but it's still with intention of I do need to build the strength there as well. So we're doing like pauses in the dip for our push presses to start off with, and then, like, towards the later phases we'll get to jerking again. So there's a degree of both at times. I think if you've already got the requisite strength, then the way that I treat it for a lot of my, particularly the girls, some of the girls that I work with are very, very strong in the overheads already relative to their competition weights. The guys' overheads weights just get insane. So, like, because they're already really, really strong, it's mainly about building that efficiency, building the technique so they can be fast with it, rather than just being like, okay, we need to, like, do another 10, 20 kilos on this lift in 3 months, and, like, how can we figure out how to make that happen?
Sounds like there's more crossover to CrossFit.
There's a lot of crossover to CrossFit.
Yeah.
Than weightlifting?
I think so.
Well,
especially because now you're talking about, now you're sort of diving into the realm of, for us it's about always refining the jerk to be able to do the heaviest we possibly can for one. But now we're talking about, does the event say we have to do the heaviest we can for one, or we have to get out the quickest time of doing 10 at 50 kilos? So it sounds like suddenly there's a tactical side to the training.
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas that's kind of more set in stone for weightlifting.
Well, see, I think the reason I think Strongman is essentially CrossFit on steroids. Or at least, like, it's CrossFit, but the weights are so heavy.
Yeah. It's very heavy and very short.
Not actually going to happen that fast off over that much time.
Yeah.
And when I say it's CrossFit on steroids, I mean like we're open about it. You know, like we don't just hide behind, you know, faux testing.
Pop one dude every now and then that lives on the other side of the world, and it's like, oh no, just them are on steroids, like nobody else.
Yeah. But like, yeah, the other thing that changes between Strongman and CrossFit is oftentimes we do know the events in advance, at least, you know, 12 weeks out, so 3 months out. We have some idea of what the events are going to be, potentially the prescribed weights as well, so we can still plan for that. So like we have time to make changes to our training to affect some sort of adaptation for that specific competition, similar to how you would do it for weightlifting, compared to CrossFit, where it's really like unknowable in a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know, where you have to have so many different capacities training at once because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas we kind of know, and really it's only going to be one of three things, right? It's max weight for speed, like in a medley, or max reps in 60 seconds. There's not really much else that they do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Every now and then you get like a what did we have? We had a competition that was like last man standing stones, and it was like I load one to Andy loads it back to me, and until somebody fails, like that.
That's probably the most CrossFit thing that you could do.
Yeah, but the like, so typically that gives like a time frame of going, oh, you've got 30 seconds to get it back. Like the stone weight for like me when we did this was not like I gave up at 30 because I was like, surely, like, can we just call it here? Like, we can just call it as if anyone else gets 30, it's a draw. And then the guy's like, no, you have to go until it's done. I was like, I'm just walking away. Like, I am done for this. The comp ran like an hour and a half overtime from what I was expected to be because I had to go and do 30 reps on the same stone. It's like, can you roll in something heavier for me? Like something different. And that was a different beast, but like most of the time,
what weight was it?
It was a 110 to 1.3 because it was like a low, like New South Wales qualifying competition, so it wasn't a super heavy one. But then because the divisions were pretty small and like so the 80s and 90s had the same stone, the guy running it wanted to see everyone go as hard as they could, so he set it up. It was like, cool, an under 80 versus an under 90 to start off with, so that I didn't just go direct against like my own, like somebody in my division. Go, okay, he's done now, so I'm just going to walk away. So then he put me up against the other division first, and then worked our way through. So then I was like at 30, I was like, can I please be done? Like, I want to get out of the sun. It was in the middle of, you know, all the fires that were happening. It was like November last year. I was like, there's smoke around everywhere. It's really damn hot. It was like 35 degrees. I was like, I just want to get myself out of here. Like, I don't have much like hair coverage on my head, and I'm already pretty white and pasty here. Like, I'm not made for the sun.
Yeah, feeling that.
And yet you guys live out here, like Newcastle. It's pretty sunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm indoors most of the time.
Fair enough. I guess the other thing that I see and I mentioned this yesterday, is like the similarities between like the stone and like kind of like arched angel triple extension of like the snatch. I found a lot of benefit of training stones to my snatch. And I don't know if you've seen me snatching recently, but it looks very different to like how I used to snatch.
It looks like you're quicker.
Yeah, and I attribute that to the stones.
How?
It just made me have to, like, training slow, like stones are slow, like had to make me use my feet better. Like I had to impart more force, and now I do that when I'm actually lifting.
So through the feet.
Just through the feet, through the legs. Like I'm able to really make that extension happen quick, and then I'm under. And it's weird, but
yeah. So I'm just sort of playing it in my head, just thinking, because if we talk about like that arched angel, I suppose, then we're bringing more hips in. So you're saying you're using more feet as opposed to hip switch, and again, if you attribute speed under, then I'm saying, okay, well that means the hips are snapping quicker to control that speed. So,
But it could also be where I am in relation to the bar and over my feet too. So if you're in a better position to use the hips, then when the hips snap through, they're still going to finish. They're going to move more efficiently.
I think the thing that as well that you do get from the stone that's a little bit unique is there is a very serious danger with the stones that I think it forces a bit more awareness of where you're positioning the pressure through your feet.
See, that's kind of what I mean.
That I think
you've got better awareness.
Yeah.
So to speak. Okay.
Yeah, which I think for weightlifting, obviously, you don't want the center of pressure through your foot to move away from where it needs to be too early. Otherwise, you get my problem with weightlifting and everything ends up out here, from rushing to the toes a little bit too much. That being said, I haven't actually practiced weightlifting a fair bit since going to stones because I can lift stones and that's fun, or I can fail miserably at snatching again. And it's just go get the stones out.
If I'm gonna do a lift cold, it's gonna be stones.
Stones end up being one of those ones that you just have to do cold. Everything is strongman, you get good at doing things cold as well, because it's you do warm up to weight, and then it's cool. Now, because it's not a weightlifting competition, you've got 3 platforms out the back that you can warm up on, or whatever it is. There's typically we have one 12-inch log here, so if the guys are using the 12-inch log, everyone's got to warm up first, and then it becomes a competition log, so there's not another one to warm up on. So then it's you had to get warmed up, but it might be I think I had about a 20-minute gap on the weekend just gone between my last warm-up on the yoke and then my actual event, weight on the yoke, and there was still a 50-kilo jump between the two of those. Yeah. So it's you just get prepared where it's all right, cool, just get myself try to get enough of the skill dialed in the warm-ups, but then you've got this long gap, and then it's all right, just trust that I've taught my body what it needs to do in training, and then just mentally get yourself ready to put a heavy ass weight on you in some funky way. Which is not ideal by any means, but when you've got one of everything to compete with and there might be 40 people waiting to go, is you don't have much choice. So yeah, I think there's strongman's weird.
So, warming up in strongman is the worst. It really is. Coming from weightlifting, where it's I'm allowed to go bar 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and now it's alright, for example, when I did gods, it's okay, first off, the log starts at 75, so that's your first warm up, and then you're the weight, I think the weight was 100. Well, maybe 105.
I think yours was 90, ours was 100.
Okay, something like that. So I just went 75. I think maybe someone put 95 on there, and then it was okay, that's it.
Out you go.
Out you go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that, and then you have to do you had to do that and warm up on the monster dumbbell, and figure out your position for the Viking press, all at the same time. So you go over to do one other one, and you come back and somebody's put 30 kilos extra on there because the heavyweight boys have just decided it's time for them to warm up too, and you're dude, the log was sitting there at a decent weight, and you just put 130 on there. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's very fun, but also the worst. And I can't.
A dysfunctional relationship.
It really is.
Yeah, but you just keep on going back to it.
Sounds like lightweight weightlifting in that regard, though, too.
Yeah. Yeah, because of that, I've actually, when I go to my weightlifting now, I get in trouble a lot for not warming up properly, because
From who? Aren't you the boss?
Yeah, but I still have coaches, and I still try to listen to people when I'm lifting. Where you have a coach brain and then an athlete brain.
Yeah.
So when I'm the coach, I'm pretty sensible. But when I'm an athlete, that's when you see me do dumb stuff. Like cold snatches or something.
Yeah. There's no real justification for it either, because you just you're oh, this is how we do it in comp, so I have to be good at this. It's that's not a good justification. It's like going with like you're a boxer and like, oh well, I get punched in the face in the fight, so then like just Andy, hit me now. I got to get ready for it. Like,
Yeah, just because you have to do it at some point doesn't mean you should do it all the time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No. Cool. What's the time?
It is 12:30.
Cool. We'll probably call it there.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, man?
Personally, I'm probably the best place is at New Strength HQ for like most things for like what we do here, and there's a lot more that goes out social media wise and like promotion that way. I'm pretty quiet on it at the moment. Like I don't have the apps on my phone for now, and then when I do, it's mostly just baby photos and the occasional strongman thing like mixed in there. So if you want to actually get like valuable stuff, then the gym space, the gym stuff is way better.
And if they're in Newcastle, they should definitely check you guys out.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
And Troy, where can people find you?
Probably best on Instagram, Hunter Barbell Club page. So yeah, that's probably the best place to make first contact, and we go from there.
Guys, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us.
I feel like I contributed a lot less than what you were hoping.
Nah, that's all right. I kind of just wanted you guys to meet and hang out because I think you guys are kindred spirits. Guys, you can find RAW Barbell Club at RAW Barbell Club on all of our social media. So that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat. We're even on TikTok. If you want to see more episodes like this, leave a comment below. And if you love this episode just like I did, please share it with your friends. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
You are onto that like outro. That was dialed.
Oh, Barbell. Thanks for watching. Please like and share.
What about following?
And follow.